Welcome to our webinar, Thriving Restaurant in a Rising Cost Economy. Our guest speaker is an experienced chef and restaurant owner herself who can offer you insights for operations, menu, staffing, and marketing. Deagon Williams will share 6 keys to success today. Trinity Valley SBDC services are provided in a non-discriminatory way to all legal residents and citizens of the United States. We offer a no-fee service to entrepreneurs and small business owners as we are grant funded in partnership with the U.S. Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, and Trinity Valley Community College. Trinity Valley SBDC serves the 5-county area of Trinity Valley Community College, Anderson, Henderson, Kaufman, Rains, and Van Zandt counties, a partnership program of the U.S. Small Business Administration who provides business resources, training, loan programs, business certification, and resources with economic development. Trinity Valley Community College is a known educator in our area, which includes added resources for workforce development and continuing education. The SBDC is known for business plans, market research, and assisting with documents to prepare for a loan. We also offer additional resources and training, which can be found on our website, tvccsbdc.org. Here's some highlights of our speaker today, Ms. Williams. She's the owner of Culinary Business Strategy and a 25-year veteran of the culinary industry. She has a wealth of information, and we look forward to her presentation today. You can find information regarding Trinity Valley SBDC on that website that I just mentioned, or you can contact us by phone at 903-675-7403. And to follow us for updates, you can go to our Facebook page and LinkedIn profiles as well. As we move into our training session, we encourage you to use the chat box. Drop your name and business for others to connect with you. We ask to mute background noise during the session so everyone can hear. We will check for questions in the chat and have an open-ended Q&A at the end. Let's get started. All right, Miss Williams, you have the floor.
I am super excited to be here and share this with you and have an interactive presentation to talk about how we can manage a successful restaurant in a rising cost economy. I mean, successful is really the key that we're looking at here. Maybe successful in restaurant. Like, how do we keep going to get it? Like, we heard some comments early starting just before the seminar, like it is a tough industry. It's always been a tough industry, and now it's a really tough industry. And so how are we going to look at that? I'm grateful to be here, and I grateful to the SBDC, the Small Business Administration, and of Northern Texas, as well as Trinity Valley Community SBDC. Tuesdays are best for a do-si-do. That was very kind of you. So today we're going to talk about managing a successful restaurant in a rising cost economy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself or why I'm qualified to present this seminar, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have along the way. Please feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat, and Eddie will interrupt me because I'm happy to share my experience, but we're really not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about the success of your restaurant. And I've already taken up my fair share of time with tech issues. So the agenda of what we're going to go over today is we're going to look at some introductions, which I'm going to ask all of you, if you could please jump into the chat, please drop your name, like Eddie said, your contact information if you want to share it with other people. But above all, I would love to know why you're here and what you hope to get out of today. What caused you, that made you want to spend an hour and a half of your time learning about this with us, and what would make this a success for you? Because really, this is far more about you than it is about me. The course overview, we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get into rising labor, rising rents, rising ingredient costs, the crunch of the business model, and then we'll wrap up and next steps for everybody. The objective that I'm hoping to present and give today at the end of this seminar will be to give you the skill set to know how to create data-driven assessment and decisions so you can identify larger scale trends and connect the dots of your business, what's happening and what's changing. And I think that's a really important key point to look at, because it's so easy to do research to prove rather than doing research to find, or looking at data and then coming up with adding up something that doesn't necessarily take in the whole picture. It looks really obvious and easy. Like fire engines create fires, but actually it's quite the opposite. And so it's easy to come up with that. So identify larger scale, connect those dots, and then leverage those dots for the mission and vision of your business, or really importantly. And then how you're going to directly grow your business from the stuff that we were talking about, the content of what we're talking about today, because that's the whole point, really, right? So we have the objective, and the outcome is to give you the strategy and tools to more effectively thrive in this industry at a time when we have rising costs and there's a crunch in the economy of what's happening. I heard somebody say that there's basically virtually the same amount of sales that have been happening. And in some level that can be true, right? There are people that we are selling, instead of having a $10 salad, we're now selling a $15 salad. How do we go about that? Like, how do we make more money? We're selling fewer salads, and therefore we're selling them at $15 rather than at 10 than we did pre-pandemic. And we have about the same sales, but our cost of goods sold and our labor has gone up. So what do we do? How does that work, right? That is quite tricky. We wanted to get into that. So I am going to pause here for half a second because I would love to talk about introductions, and it's a changing world. And why are you here? What do you hope to get out of it? And what can make this a success for you? That would be really helpful, because I have the outline, I have the slides, I can present like a talking head, and also to most effectively help you is to get a little bit more of a sense of why you're here and what would make this a success for you. And also, I would just like to know you and say hi, because we always do better work when we're connected to another human being. So if anybody would love to, I would love it for you to jump in and tell me why you're here and what problem you're looking to solve. I guarantee, and you could even talk about a friend's problem. You don't have to talk about your own, right? I can guarantee it's something that it's a small industry, and there are lots of, we can repeat things over and over. So if you have something that's remotely that problem, somebody else has something similar to it. So there we are. I can actually not see the chat. So if there's something in there, could you please interrupt me? Okay. It was like my slides blocked again. I was gonna lose my mind. I won't lose my mind. So section 1, our scaffolding of where we're going today are the 6 keys to success. These are the things that I use over and over again. We're going to look at inflation and change, the service model, the employee goals and strategy, what we do with employees. We're going to cross ×3. We're going to talk about that, leveraging sales and smart leasing. And then there's also overhead and management, one of the key things that we're going to talk about. So inflation. Inflation is not necessarily a bad thing. We've been dealing with inflation since time began, since we were all born. We just didn't notice it. I remember a time when I was a kid and my father said, so-and-so is selling gas for 67 cents a gallon. And I was like, and now it's embarrassing to say, or it seems crazy, like old to say that, but I remember he was just like out of his mind. Who could possibly do that? Right? And 67 cents, or the price that we paid for our houses 20 years ago or whatever, has changed over time. Money changes all the time. The issue is fast inflation. I remember when you could get a sandwich for less than $10, and that was just like, 5 years ago, right? It's the rapid inflation when we can all remember it is the problem, because the staff because all of us have this idea of like, that's really expensive. And before we didn't quite notice it. There's a famous restaurant in New York called Via Carrata that has this salad it's this very simple salad. And it has, cult-like would make it sound Instagrammable, but it has a radical following. People lose their mind. They wait in line for 4 hours to get this green salad at Via Carrata. And I saw a video this morning on Instagram that said, why are people losing their mind for a $24 salad? And there's nothing on it except for 5 different kinds of greens. It's a good salad. I've made the vinaigrette. It's delicious. And $24? Really? But they have a reason to do it, right? Their real estate is very expensive, and whatever. If people are buying it, they can charge it. If it's working, it's okay. But we want to be careful about it's noticing the thing. I remember when salads went over $20 and I was like, it's a salad. And I'm the one that's in the business of making sure that my clients make money. So when I start complaining about prices, right, I'm very careful for my clients, but that's where it gets tricky. So again, inflation isn't the problem. Fast inflation is a problem because A, we have to change our business model, and B, we have to have customers who catch up with us. So, but we want to be very careful about, like I said earlier, about fire engines causing fires, right? There's causal relationships. And, a small child once said, fire engines obviously cause fires because every time I see a fire engine, there's a fire or they're on their way to a fire. And there wasn't a fire before the fire engine got there. From a specific perspective, that makes sense. And we all know that that's not true, right? And it's obviously like small fire engines cause small fires, big fire engines cause big fires. That's not true. We want to be really careful about how we have causal relationships and we look at stuff right off the bat. I was just talking to clients yesterday in another state, and they have two businesses about 30 minutes apart, same business, and they saw and the same thing, and they said, well, people in this town don't eat breakfast, and people in this town are afraid to get out. We don't have a drive-through, and people won't do anything that's not in a drive-through. Our job is to figure out how to get people to stop and get out of their cars. It's not that like they won't, they never, because we do have evidence that people do stop their cars, get out of their cars, and go get something. And so if it's not working as well as the drive-through that they have in this other town 30 minutes away, our job is to solve for it. And that's the essence of what I'm going to talk about today. Because we cannot change inflation or radical, macro trends that are happening in the economy at the moment. But what we can do is figure out what we need to do in order to make it balance and work. And one of the things that we run up against is it's not like it used to be. The economy is not the way that it used to be. The pandemic had some success lessons that we can talk about, right? So we want to be really careful about how we, it's so easy. And I do it in my own business and I see other people do it all the time, but we want to be really careful about how we assign causation to anecdotal evidence. That's basically it. Because as soon as I assign causation to anecdotal evidence, I've now worked myself into a cul-de-sac and there's no place for me to go. It's just that, like, essentially, the world is against me or it doesn't work. And what we need to do is find solutions that do work because as entrepreneurs, that's the beauty and the curse of what we do. Does that make sense? About just kind of changing the perspective a little bit so that we have the opportunity to uh, keep it wide open. So solution number one is entrepreneurship by definition is about solving problems. And that's hard. Sometimes that can be really hard. And you're like, but rising cost economy, but that's what we do, right? The beauty of an entrepreneur is that we think that we can do anything. And the curse of an entrepreneur is that we think we can do anything, right? And so we have to do both at the same time. And our job is just to find a solution. It has always been hard. Remember that like 67-cent gallon for gasoline at the time seemed like it was highway robbery. And there was no way that we were going to be able to keep a roof over our head and food on the table and pay gas at that price at the same, right? And so it seemed really quite tricky about how we were going to make that happen. And yet we survived. And so now we have to remember this is not the first time that we've had a tricky economy or rising cost economy. Again, how are we going to figure out how to deal with it? So we're going to innovate and we're going to create new solutions. And the reason why I know, well, A, just because I want you to succeed, right? So I'm just not willing to sit down and be like, well, it's not the way it used to be, because that's not going to help. We're just going to be stuck. And I know in my hometown and all over the region that I live in, which is a major metropolitan region, there are restaurateurs that come to me and they say, customers don't care about spending, they don't care about high quality food anymore. They just want the cheapest deal. Or people are, nobody's willing to leave their home after the pandemic. Everybody's staying home since the pandemic. And I'm like, really? Because I saw some cars on the road. And it may be true that people stay more at home. I know that I do, right? Um, my values have changed some, right, as a result of the pandemic, but I still go out and I still eat. And we can't just make a blanket statement that nobody wants to go out and nobody's willing to leave their home, nobody's willing to go through drive-through, or nobody's willing to pay good money. Because I can name 5 restaurants off the bat that are not nearly as full as they used to be and that are struggling. And I can also equally name 5 restaurants that you can't get a reservation in and you can't do a walk-in in, or that there are people that are like, there's a restaurant in my town that opens up at 5 p.m. for happy hour. Well, I guess you can have dinner as well at the same time, right? You walk in at 5 p.m. and if you get there at 4:30, there's a line of 35 to 40 people going down the block every single day. And when I saw it on a Tuesday, I was like, because a friend and I were meeting for happy hour on my birthday several months ago. And I was like, I walk in at 5 o'clock, don't I? And she's like, I got here early and I'm the 22nd person in line. I was blown away. And it's one of my favorite restaurants. I just never go at 5 p.m. So I was utterly shocked. And so now I started making a point of driving by at about that time to see like they have a line 7 days a week. It's amazing. So obviously not everybody is staying at home, right? And there are different factors, but we can solve this. And I want you guys to be able to solve it and make money. So that's what we're looking at. And it doesn't mean when I say let's think about innovation and solving things, I certainly don't mean to say your problems aren't real. Problems are definitely real. It's a challenge, but I'm also like, let's talk about a solution. So the solution is one of the big ones that's really important to look at is, and this is where I find that there's such an opportunity for success is it's so easy to work hard and then say the money isn't working. And it's important to remember the components of a financial model. We all have a financial model, and it's important to remember those components, right? The top line dictates the bottom line, meaning sales equals profit, and equals net, right? Those two terms can be used interchangeably. And if money scares you and financial terms scare you, um, if it's scary, because it certainly scared me when I got into this business, right? I just wanted to cook great food, and if I cook it, they will come, which is a great idea for um, a cute movie, but it's not how business works. Just because I cook it doesn't mean that people are going to come buy my food. So, but if financial terms scare you or freak you don't understand them, reach out. I'd be happy to help you with it because understanding the terms is going to take away 75 to 80% of your fear. And this isn't mathematically difficult. It's conceptually difficult, especially since so many of us, like I said, myself included originally, I would just panic at the word anything that had to do with money. I promise you, if you can tie your shoes and you can drive a car, you can certainly handle all of the financials that are required to be a successful food and beverage business owner. So we want to look at the components of a financial model. Like I said, everybody has this um, financial model. We have sales. So we're selling peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that's all we do. I guess maybe we'll add things on as we go, but we sell peanut butter and jelly sandwich for $5 and we have sales of $100 a day. Just making up some crazy numbers to make it really easy. Right. So from that $100 in sales, I have to take care of my cost of ingredients, cost of goods sold, my labor, and my overhead, right? Overhead is like what it costs me to pay rent, insurance, licenses, all of that stuff. And then it's the profit. So if I have $100 in sales, my cost of goods sold, labor, and overhead are the three major categories that will always be taken out before I get to net or profit. We have to make sure that everything fits. And we do that two ways. We set it up before we open the business, and then we measure it while we're in business. Those two things. This, my friends, I promise you, is one of the biggest keys. If you take nothing more from today and actually know what these categories are for your business and measure them on a regular basis, a big chunk of problems will go away. And if they don't completely go away, and the reason is because we just like what gets measured is what gets done. If we're not measuring it, it's really easy to get lost, right? It's really easy to be like, yeah, it's fine. It's kind of like thinking about how many subscriptions do I have automatically coming out of my bank account? One or two, and then you look at it and there's 8 or 10 because we forget them, right? And they all seem reasonable one-off decisions, and they might be reasonable one-off decisions, but at the end of the day, can I afford them? Right? And so we need to find a way to make sure that we have a business model that works before we work really, really, really hard to find out that it's not working and we're slowly taking on debt. And this is becoming a really common theme right now because a lot of COVID filtered SBA loans are coming due, right? And people, if we don't have a business model that works, we're going to topple because of that. And we don't want to topple because of that. So this is how it works. I'm going to share a tool with you guys now. I want to be really clear about this tool. I hesitate to share this because so many people in the industry love to hang on to this, and it's changing, or it already has changed. Your ability to succeed will depend upon your ability to take this tool and manipulate it and change it to fit your business and not hang on to what used to be or what worked. And the reason why I say that, when I first came back from culinary training and apprenticeship in France, I was food costing at the time in a fine dining restaurant was 36%. We had to keep it below 36%. And that's what we were working on. If you say 36% now, people are like, you what? You can't do that. Everybody has the idea that it needs to be this, this, and this. But what I want to share with you about your business model, very importantly, is that your business model is only relevant in relation to yourself. Think about Sonic and think about the fanciest restaurant that you have. Those do not work off of the same financial model or business model. So it's very important that we hit our own. And it's the reason why it's important is people say, well, I use fresh ingredients or I use organic ingredients, and so my costs of goods sold are higher. That doesn't change the model at all. Sonic and the fanciest restaurant you've ever heard of everybody works off of the same model. So we want to be careful that we use the model specifically for you. That was a lot of buildup for this. But I just want to, clear this out very carefully. So solution number 3 are tools. We want to look at those tools. And a lot of like this is where I was sharing before that we had, when I first came into the industry, overhead was at about 20%. That's what everybody was talking about, right? And now it's changed over time. Prime cost used to be completely acceptable to have it between 72 to 75%. Prime cost, the expectation of prime cost has gone down. The expectation of cost of goods sold has certainly gone down. Overhead has gone up and down, right? But above all, we need to make sure that they all add up to less than 100% so that you're making a profit. My mentor once heard me do a presentation and I was talking about profit of 10%. And he literally like jumped up out of his chair because he was a subtle guy. He jumped up out of his chair and he said, "Kid, you can't do that. You need to have your profit sitting there somewhere around 6 to 7%. If you guys are looking at 10 to 12%, you're going to look like it's crazy. You're just being totally, you're asking for too much. You guys are being greedy. It means that the business model has changed. It doesn't mean that anybody has done anything wrong." So does this make sense? What I'm talking about? Remember the last slide is that we had sales, and from all of our sales, our gross sales, which is 100% of what the money that has come in, we have to subtract cost of goods sold, labor, and overhead. Those will come out before we get to profit. And it's important to know that right off the bat or all the way across the board. And I'm happy to talk this through if it makes any sense. If somebody wants to dive in more to this, I'm happy to talk it through. Raise your hand, or we can certainly talk about it afterwards. You can reach out and we can figure out how this works specifically in your business, because this is really important and it's not complicated. I promise you, again, if you can tie your shoes or drive a car, you can handle it. But the solution is tools, right? And how we look at it, right? It changed, like I said, over time. This was like in 2018, and then it has changed because then cost and overhead, but overhead didn't change a whole bunch, right? In fact, by supply and demand, and overhead is going down in certain areas, right? So our job is to figure out how to sell more. And maybe we only have, we have like a southern kitchen, and we have in that southern kitchen, we have a cafe, and we have 40 seats, and we can't possibly do any more. People are turning over. We can't possibly do any more. Maybe we can sell a soup and salad to go as a dinner, take home to dinner, or we can have fried chicken can go and you can heat it up in the oven. Or what can we do we can do catering, we can have breakfast food and stuff like that. We can find ways to get around it. Is really important. So we have to always find a solution before we get in too much trouble. And the way to find that solution when we're uncomfortably in trouble rather than in big in trouble is knowing our business model gives us the opportunity to make data-driven decisions, as opposed to this sucks or nobody's willing to leave their house. It is true that people that say that like people aren't eating this type of food anymore since the pandemic. It's true that they're not in your business, but it's not true that it's not happening, because we only need 100 to 200 people to frequent your business a day in order for you to be financially successful, right? And each person is different. We can figure it out. It might be that you have a huge restaurant and it needs to be 500 people a day. But my point is, we don't need to be all things to all people. We just need this many people to come into your business. Does that make sense? How's that landing for everybody? I know I can talk fast and I just want to check in and make sure to see if anybody has any how that's all working. Cost of goods sold are two totally different things. They're not mixed. Prime cost does not come from cost of goods sold. It comes from the addition of labor and cost of goods sold, meaning those are the two things that I think they're most important because they add in. Thank you so much for managing that. It comes up to prime cost is something that I look at because once we're in business, overhead doesn't change a whole bunch. But cost of goods sold, meaning your food cost and your beverage cost, the things that you buy in order to make your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and your labor are the two things that as a business owner I can control. So I look at those from my point of sale system on a daily basis. I have a plan that I set it up and then I go back and I refer to it. Again, if one is new to all of this, it could be overwhelming and a bit much. And also, I want to say, please don't let it cause your eyes to roll in the back of your head. Um, because if you can tie your shoes and drive your car, you can do it. And so if it doesn't make sense, it's not because you're incapable or it's something really complicated. It's just simply because you haven't been exposed to it and somebody hasn't explained it. So please jump in and reach out if those questions are about it. So again, prime cost comes from cost of goods sold and labor combined together. We need to know what those are because look, if I'm spending what that is saying on this slide is 74 cents out of every dollar is coming up to is coming out for cost of goods sold and labor. And that's going to end up being, meaning I only have 26 cents left over to run my entire business from every dollar coming in. So we need to make sure that that makes sense. Okie dokie. I'm going to move on from this, but I'm happy to share slides and stuff afterwards if you need it. So, section two, let's look at service models, right? So we have anything from fast food, literally McDonald's, Burger King, Sonic, whatever it may be, to fast casual, which is like Chipotle and restaurants like that. Casual dining would be an independent restaurant where like a Southern Cafe or something like that, where we went into it. And then it goes all the way up to fine dining. There are more service models than that, but I've reduced it down to these four broad categories for those of us that are in this industry, right? So we want to go there, service models. It's important to know what those are because things change over time and space, and we need to make it work for each of the service models for you. Again, knowing where you are and where you're going, what you need to achieve helps us have the model where it's going. We can build it on paper. We can build it before, even if you're already open, we can build it and then we measure against it. That's what's always important to do, is to measure against something because what gets measured is what gets done. Fast food, McDonald's and Burger King spend way more money on marketing than we would in casual dining as an independent restaurant because we simply like say we don't have that kind of money, right? They need to do a lot of marketing because we all know what you can get at McDonald's and Burger King, and they need to constantly sway us and make sure that we're coming over here. It's the same thing as Pepsi and Coke. Even though half the country is basically divided between Pepsi and Coke, it's a constant marketing plan. And Pepsi and Coke have an amiable detente where they say, okay, you guys have Northern California and you guys have North Texas. There you go. And they just double down on that over and over again. Because people is consumption of soda happens geographically, just part of the marketing plan. So fast food has a ton of money going into marketing, much less than goes into casual dining. Casual dining and fine dining is going to be much more relationship based. Obviously, digital marketing is going to have a touch into it. So we want to be careful about that, right? In fine dining, we only need 120 people a day. Fast food needs 120 people every 10 minutes, right? So there's a much lower profit margin in fast food than there is in fine dining. They make up for it in volume. Fine dining has a higher profit margin because they are doing fewer people. So that's important to look at. So knowing what your service model is, and look, you can be somewhere in between. It's okay, but knowing what it is and dealing with your success around it would be really helpful. So I just said this. This is a classic me. Jump ahead on slides. So fast food is always has a lower cost of goods sold because it is buying lower quality. Let's just be honest, right? Like, right, lower quality and higher volume, it depends. You have lower labor because it's turning it over. You can do most typically people can stay at minimum wage, and it has a really high overhead, meaning that, McDonald's isn't a restaurant company, it's a real estate company. That corporation buys and gets the highest, most trafficked location that they can. And they have high overhead, being that they have franchise fees, that they're developing things all the time. And they also have high overhead in marketing, like I was saying. Fine dining needs to have mid-range cost of goods sold, high labor, and mid overhead. And when cost of goods sold go up, here's one of the things that I think is a secret, you guys, to a reason why restaurants are suffering in 2026. Because I don't know how you feel, but for me, I feel like we're just coming out of the pandemic. The pandemic was actually 6 years ago, but it always feels to me like we're just coming out of it. Like that had a significant impact on all of us regardless of where we were and how it was handled, right? Or where it was at the time. But I still always feel like we're coming out of it, just barely coming out of it. I think one of the reasons why restaurants are really suffering, I watched it happen with many, many clients, is money started going crazy. Are we going to get government support? Are we not going to get government support? How do things work? Going all over the place like this, right? Having that come down to where, and we just started jacking up prices or changing prices of like, now we need to add on, remember, paper goods, like to-go fees. We never had to-go fees before the pandemic. Then all of a sudden we're at restaurants, we're spending 2, 3, 4, 5% on to-go stuff because we were doing so much to go, and there was such a shortage we couldn't necessarily get stuff all the time. And so kitchen gloves went up to like 60, 70, $80 a box, to where they normally run at less than $10 a box. So we had to add on to go fees and stuff like that. So in having that, we just started adding on different prices. And like there was a service fee, and there was a, line for a tip as well. And there was the to-go fee and the whatever. And people had never paid it before. There was a mandatory service fee for to-go because we had to pay somebody to do it. So prices started creeping up. We just started tacking things on and not worrying about it. And then, or not, we were worried about it, but we were just trying to stay above water. And what ended up happening is it kind of priced ourselves out of the market, or got close to pricing ourselves out of the market. And we never really stopped and said, okay, what is labor now? What is cost of goods sold now? And what can we do? There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do. And if that's your case, like you've just been adding on and you don't feel like you can add on anymore because you're going to lose customers, but you don't feel like you can stay where you are because you're not making money and it's really tough, then it would be a time to stop and reset and look at like where actually are these categories. Then we can re-engineer it. And then if there's a problem, right, there's always going to be something on your menu that has a much higher cost of goods sold or a much higher labor cost. And then we can change a whole bunch of stuff by working through doing menu engineering, right? We can't sell lobster all day, every day, because we also have to sell some chicken wings or chicken thighs, right? Because chicken is going to have a lower cost of goods sold. And so we need to balance out the lobster and caviar, the really expensive stuff, with the stuff that's in the middle of the road. So how do we can change how we do that through menu engineering. Does that make sense? Okay. Section 3, employees, goals, and practices. Remember how I've said it several times already, or a couple times already, what gets measured is what gets done. It's really important to be able to measure. It's the same thing in that last slide when I was talking about how we added on money to our prices throughout COVID. And then now we're kind of like, what do we do? It's the same thing here, is to know your bottom line times 4, meaning over and over and over again in several ways. Not just your bottom line that comes down to your financials, but know your bottom line of what is acceptable behavior or necessary, right? We were talking about earlier, and Chef Adam jumped in and talked about, he's willing to train people rather than getting seasoned vets. He's willing to train people, and he gets more people coming in. That's a bottom line for him. I'm guessing if we had a longer time for that discussion, what we would have heard is something along the lines of like, he really doesn't want to hire people that know everything off the bat, because if they know everything, they're not willing to work with your business and figure out how, right, to work your company. Um, Work within your company because they know everything. And that can be really difficult. That can be hard to take. So knowing your bottom line, what gets measured is what gets done. Make sure that you're measuring your bottom line so that you can hire strategically and wisely. It's important to me, just like with Chef Adam, it's really important. I don't necessarily always need to hire somebody that's completely new, but I'm certainly willing to train. But because of that, I'm going to hire very strategically because on average, it costs somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000 to bring on a new employee between training, hiring, time that we spend hiring, interviewing, onboarding, and all of that before they become a valuable interest, a valuable and profit generating part of the company. New hires are really expensive. So because of that, I am hiring very clearly. I know what my bottom lines are. My bottom lines are definitely like, how does this person think and how does this person approach problem solving, and who are they in the world? What's important to them? So I certainly don't. I mean, one of the things that I do is I have interview questions to where I hire people. I ask open-ended interview questions. I frankly just want to get people to talk and tell me about themselves and who they are as human beings rather than are they compliant and they're willing to follow my orders. I want people that are going to be thinking about our customers, our shared customers, because we succeed as a team and we succeed together by the environment that we create. And if it's just somebody that's going to do exactly what I tell them, then I'm going to have a problem because if I didn't tell them how to deal with, I say, if there's a refill, if their soda cup is empty, give them a refill. We didn't talk about what happens if their beer is empty. And so they never go back and sell a second one. I need people to be able to think on their own. And so I hire very strategically and wisely because of that. I hand out jobs very sparingly. And one of the ways that I do that is so that people get to know that like having a job here is special and important. And you're special and important for being here. So that's something that can be really helpful. Um, so rumor has it the full service restaurants will soon be a thing of the past. I don't think that's true personally. I think that things have changed. We have drive-through, and as Jennifer mentioned, there's lots of third-party apps that have become the norm. We're paying more for it. Restaurants are paying for it. Like we finally got to a point of critical mass where things went over. We certainly have help with that. But I don't think full service restaurants are going to be a thing of the past. I think that we still need each other as human beings, and we want to have a place to go sit down and be together. Um, it might be that we're doing it for more special occasions, but at some point, life is going to kind of even out again, and we're going to be like, you want to go out to dinner on a Wednesday? And if we can afford it, it's nice to go out to dinner and sit down and say, at our local eatery and see the people that we've known for years. And we say, hey, George, and how's it going, Susie? It's nice to see you. It's good just to have an easy way of sitting, having dinner. So I don't think that restaurants are going to be a thing of the past, but I do think that it's very wise for all of us to think of it like that. That would be super important and helpful. So there we go. How's everybody doing? Do you guys have any questions? Is there anything I can pause on? Are you all with me? Eddie, having you there is really helpful. Thank you so much. It's super, both of you guys. It's really helpful. Thank you. So let's talk about where the rubber meets the road, right? Knowing your bottom line times four, I will just keep coming back to that. What kind of people do I want to be surrounded by? What kind of goals do I need to set? I always ask clients, how much money do I need to make? And how much money do I have to make? Those are super important to know those two different things. And then and then designing how we're going to get there. Having the mission and vision of your business are the reason why your business exists. It's what it hopes to accomplish, like why it's here and how we're going to go about doing it. Those are two very important things. And if you don't know what your mission and your vision are, I would highly recommend, I don't even know how to say it more strongly recommend um, reaching out, and I'm happy to help you with my mission and vision workbook or walk you through it. It's really important to know exactly why we're here and what we're doing because it's so easy to assume this is what we do and this is how life works. So And we just keep doing the same thing. But if we stop, and whenever I stop, I actually do it quarterly in my business, is why am I here? Does this still hold true? And in fact, things have slowly changed over time and space. It's really important to know what those are because those are that's the North Star, those are the guiding light, and that's how we make decisions. And without that, I tend to make decisions by um, it's easier. Well, I'm here. This is cheaper, right? And I think we've all made some kind of purchase where we're like, well, this is cheaper. I can get away with it. And it's not good. You just don't want a secondary product there or something, or sometimes you just automatically spend the highest amount of money and realize that like you could have spent less money. So, knowing your mission and vision, I cannot stress them enough of how important they are. It's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning and keeps me up at night. From there, how many slices of pizza do we need to sell? That's code for like, what is your break even? How many, where is our break even? How many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or slices of pizza do we need to sell in order to have, that we pay the overhead, that we pay our labor, and our labor varies by how much we sell. But I have to pay the general manager and I have to pay rent and I have to pay the number of servers that we have varies by how many different peanut butter and jelly sandwiches we have. But knowing one's break even is really important and that changes. I'll share with you guys that I do something called a master spreadsheet, and that goes from, and it will have, basic money, mission, vision, then going out to my menu and what my menu broken down into food costing, order guides, and stuff like that. So it'll go all the way out and we'll have like 15 to 20 plus tabs in this. With that, then I know how to manage what is going back and forth. And so if the price of peanut butter suddenly goes through the roof or there's a recall on it, then I know what we can do and how we're going to work from there. I know that it's going to impact. And so in this week, instead of having a peanut butter sandwich, we're going to have an almond butter sandwich, or I don't know, whatever it is, right? We're going to come up with a solution, but knowing why we exist and how we're going to get there, where our break even is, that changes everything in knowing how to make decisions. And so we can work on it. I remember there was a time during the pandemic or just after the pandemic, my local sandwich shop, which I adore, um, I think I'm the only Californian that doesn't like avocado, which typically gets me kicked out of most conversations because I just think it's green butter. And it's like, why would anybody want to eat green butter? It's so weird. But anyway, so I walked into this sandwich shop and, to pick up a sandwich, and everybody was there and it was lovely and said hi. And I ordered something and I saw that there was a sign on this in the front of the menu, the board up above, and it said, avocados are crazy expensive right now. Every sandwich that has avocados is going to have a 75-cent surcharge. As soon as they go back down, we'll let it go. That makes sense, right? We all know that avocados can go up and down all over the place, but then there's the flip side. The way they presented it, I didn't mind paying an extra 75 cents for avocado. And I don't even like avocado, so I didn't. But, the way they said it in a way that made me feel that I was part of the solution rather than it was punitive and a problem. You can charge whatever you need to as long as you make people feel good about it. So that's important about how we communicate it, but knowing what from that master spreadsheet, we know that when we start selling avocados that come in at $65 a case, we're going to start losing money. So we have to come up with a creative solution to make it work on the spot. And then how many employees do we need to do that, right? It's important. It's so easy to be like, well, we're really busy, so we're just going to add on more people. We're just going to keep adding on people, and then we find out that our labor cost is so high. So in that master spreadsheet, I also do something called a task to organization uh, project, right? It's a problem solution of like, here are all of the tasks of the organization, and then here are the different jobs that do them. So somebody needs to go to the bank and get change. Somebody needs to order food. Somebody needs to receive food. And so we can kind of group things back into categories. And often we can shave several points off of our labor just by doing that task to org worksheet. So then that'll help us figure out how many employees do we really need. And this is something to be looked at, even though we're a seasoned professional, right? Like Chef Adam was saying, sometimes it's important to train people because when we hire people that have a ton of experience, we can basically be what went through my mind. Nobody said it, but it's like people, when they know everything, can be less likely to be negotiate and move things around. So we want to be careful about that. The hard truth is this is the second biggest factor of success or failure is knowing all of what these things are, right? Why do you exist? What your bottom line is, how where your break even is, how many employees you need. Knowing these basic things without any assumptions, like really walking through and putting it down on paper and getting some help with it, getting somebody else to look at it and kind of kick the tires. And I know it's uncomfortable. My business is now very different, being that I consult and educate, then run a kitchen, run a restaurant. But, I have close friends, close business friends that push and kick my tires. It's uncomfortable, but it makes me a better business owner all the time. So answer these questions. This is the second biggest reason for failure. Can anybody guess what the first biggest reason for failure is in a small business? I'm going to leave that hanging and see if anybody comes up with it, or we're going to talk about it. But it's still there. There's a number one reason why small businesses fail, and it's a really important part to look at. So let's talk about employees. When I was saying that we want to hire strategically and wisely, it's important to step back and get a clear, closer look, or closer and clearer look at what we need them to do. I want to hire the person much more than I want to hire somebody that can complete this task, because I can teach people how to complete the task. If I have somebody that cares about what they're doing and how people are fed, I can teach them anything. Staff, the number one motivation for staff, you guys, this is really important to know. Our job as business leaders is to set the direction of where we're going, set sail in this particular direction, right? That's why we have the mission and vision, and we check it from time to time, make sure that we're okay, that we know what we're doing, where we're going, that the destination is there. Our job as leaders is to set the destination. Our second job as leaders is to give people the tools that they need in order to succeed, meaning the training, the culture, fellow employees, and the tools that they need. Did I write a good menu for what it is? Is it aligned with the brand? And then to give them the tool, like I said, give them the tools that they need. And then get out of their way and let them succeed. And the way that I do that is I constantly feed them tools, and I do my third part as a leader, which is I come back and I thank them for a job well done. Really important. Those three things. Set sail, give them the tools that they need, which can change over time and space. Sometimes that's coaching and training. Sometimes that's just better food. Sometimes it's better teammates. Get out of their way and come back and thank them for doing a great job. Because the number one motivation for staff is that they want to be is they can go out and look, nobody's going to get super crazy rich in the hospitality industry, right? Like this is, you make more money in other industries, right? So you want to make the number one thing that they need is to be part of something that is bigger than themselves, because everybody wants to be on a winning team. Our job as leaders is to give people the opportunity to succeed, right? So we want to motivate their staff, give them what they need. So we do that in those three steps that I just shared with you. We set sail, give them the tools that they need, and thank them. That is going to be the thing that motivates your staff. Of course they need money, right? They're working for money. They're not here just because they love us. They're here because they need to have a job, and having that job certainly does change how one shows up, but we're never going to be able to pay them enough money to make it better, to have them to give something to believe in. So we create a culture of excellence. I believe this is really important, and I can see it. I mean, I've done it for so long that I can really see where it does it when it's not there. By creating a culture of excellence, it means that all ships rise with the rising tide, right? We all want to do something really well. We want to be part of something that's good. And once we have that culture of excellence, you can watch people just naturally rise to the occasion without me having to tell them to do so. I still give them the tools that they need to succeed, right? But having that culture of excellence means that they're looking for the next opportunity. I saw a video of just like some Instagram where one of my favorite restaurants here in town was closed last weekend for a wedding out back. And they were just like, there was a quick Instagram, video that went across their backyard or their patio where somebody was celebrating their wedding. And I saw one of my favorite servers. She was walking along. I mean, they were showing the beautiful evening, but I saw this server. She was walking along. She was carrying like some dirty dishes, and you saw her stop, pivot, and look back. And I was like, that's amazing, because that is a culture of excellence. That's a staff member that's paying attention to what's going on around them and how they are going to notice things about them and make sure that they're clients and customers have what they want at any time. And they do it in a very, in this particular restaurant, there's an excellence that it's both precise and casual at the same time. So they're like, hey, how you doing? It's nice to see you. Right. But they're also watching everything across the board. So they create that culture of excellence. Um, and prep is critical here. The way we create excellence is not by like, when I was a young chef, I used to like, I was trained by French chefs. And so I learned how to like try and rule by an iron fist, or I tried to, with a pointed finger, and it doesn't work, right? Being that leadership, I had to learn a whole bunch about leadership, which is why I can train on it now. Because I simply just didn't know a ton. But prep is culture. Having the job description is one of the ways that we measure and we know what we're doing when I have that 4X, right? I'm clear about who it is that I want by having the job description and how that fits into my business. So when I look and I can say, this isn't working because Eddie keeps showing up to work 10 minutes late and he's like, but I get my job done. It's cool. And I'm like, that's great, Eddie. But in order for the organization to work, in order for the restaurant to keep working, we have a culture of excellence. And if you start showing up 10 minutes late, it's not going to work because everybody else is going to start showing up 10 minutes late. That's not how it works in a restaurant. So having really clear and having the impact of, he's like, people always have, I don't know, whatever they need by the time we open the restaurant. Maybe we just need to change. Maybe he's doing something smarter than I am and we change his schedule back or for that job, or I convince him of why he wants to be part of the winning culture, right? But knowing my job description is a way that I can measure it empirically. And that's again a data-driven decision more so than what it feels like. Um, Running a restaurant, though it can feel very personal because it's such a passion-driven industry, we want to be really careful that we're making data-driven decisions and not personal anecdote decisions. We can go by art and we can eat our food personally by what moves us. But having something else is different about we want to be able to make data-driven decisions. Onboarding, super important. The onboarding comes from, for me, this is, having it prepped. So having employee files ready, having things moving along. Um, Having things so that when somebody shows up, the highest ranking person in the organization says, hi, here I am. Here are the expectations. It's really nice to meet you. I own this restaurant. I'm the chef of this restaurant, whatever it is, rather than like, yeah, here's this host or somebody that's part-time and we see them twice a week or twice a month onboarding. They're like, yeah, fill this paperwork out or read this, employee manual. When I say we've worked really hard on this, and I know most people don't read employee manuals, here it's really important to us, and this is what we're going to work on. We're going to go over this together. I want to share some key important points with you. And then from there, there's some training, there's some videos or whatever that we want to get into. Having that onboarding process, even if I'm not the one that's going to train you, I bring you on and I share with you what you have, who's going to be training you and why it's important. And then I circle back once you're onboarded and a couple more times as you're going through the training period is really helpful because it says, by the way, I care about my business and I expect you to care about your business and my business as well. It is our shared success. And if you want to be a part of it, great. So here's the culture of excellence. And this is how we're doing it. I'm demonstrating it more so than saying it. I'm also going to say it. But if I just say it and I don't demonstrate it, seriously, what's going to happen? So the onboarding and training and then retaining, right? I come back and I check with people. It's really easy. Have you ever seen those restaurant owners or managers that walk through and they're like, how's it going? It's nice to see you. How's your day? Good to see you. I'll be back later. Looking forward to that special you made today. Hey, you trained somebody last week. I want to hear all about it. I'll be back. I got to check in here. Doing that across the board is going to be really helpful. That's a way that you train and retain because people, again, the number one motivation for staff is they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. We all want to be part of the winning team. Our job is to make sure that they have an opportunity to be part of the winning team. Okay, employees, retaining is better. It's less expensive, even if they've picked up some bad habits and they don't necessarily sweep every day, something along those lines. We can train people to go over and over again. So having retaining is better than hiring, at least financially, almost always. Not guaranteed. You have to make decisions within your own business, but the idea is very important. So we want to make sure that onboarding, training, and retaining that people know that they're part of something that is bigger than themselves, because that's what's going to motivate them. I met this I did an event out on the coast last weekend for a friend of mine, and she had a server come along who volunteered, or actually, she was like an expediter, and she volunteered to give her time at this organization. It was a good organization. It was a fundraiser. We all donated our time, and it was lovely. But she had worked at this place, which is kind of a local legend, right? Where everybody gets oysters on the coast and seafood on the coast. And she was there. Um, and she had been working there for 23 years. And I was like, who's been a server for 23 years? Like, good for you. And she's gone to management, and then she's come back to server, and she does it all over and it has to do with what's happening in her life. When she had small kids, she was like, I'm going to move my position to this. She knows that business better than anybody else, right? It's been around since time began, which is important and great. She's been around and she knows it and she loves it. And I was like, wow, how long, you've been working there that long. Why do you love it? And she's like, people are great, and she's like, boom, 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 just listed it out. And she knows what she's doing. She's so confident that she gets to succeed on a regular basis because she knows the parameters of what's important and what's not. So that is, in that sense, retaining is better. And she's part of something of excellence that's bigger than herself. And it's part of her identity. It's part of who she is. So in order to do that, one of the ways that we can do that is by creating a workflow that makes sense for your business. Be careful that we're doing this. I happen to be left-handed, right? So whenever I'm at a cutting board, I'm in a station, I put all of my raw ingredients to the left and I process to the right. Or when I'm cutting crostini on bread, I cut at this angle. And I realize that that doesn't work for everybody because people that are right-handed, like once I make a slice into that bread, it's at the wrong angle. Or once I'm processing this direction, it doesn't work. Make sure that we're using a workflow. That's a silly example, right? I mean, something far bigger than just how you process left to right or right to left, but you certainly want to make sure that you have a flow that is working for the business. Again, we always want to go back to that mission and vision, that North Star. Why are we here? What do we exist? What are we aiming to do? How much money do we have to make? How much money do we need to make? Because then that's going to help us make the small decisions down the line that all reverse engineer back up to the big goal that we're looking for. And again, what gets measured is what gets done. If we create, and also we create time to do this in my business naturally. I don't just always do the thing that's right in front of me. We stop. Hi, what are we looking to achieve here? How are we going? What's going on? That way, if we measure it, then we know that we can succeed and we can also evaluate along the way. And we can come up with that entrepreneurial spirit of changing, solving solutions, creating solutions and solving problems before they become real problems. So we want to make sure that we have time to do that, time and space to do that, and the tools, right? That's the reason why I would have a master spreadsheet, have a budget going in, measure our food costs so that when avocados go crazy up and down, we have a solution before we get to the end of the month or the 6 weeks. A lot of times we have accountants and bookkeepers that give us reports of what our food cost was in June in the middle to end of July. That doesn't help me. I need to know what my food cost is today, this week, so that I can make decisions and I'm not 6 weeks out going, this is a problem. That's what's happening. How's that working for anybody? Everybody, any questions? The actual number one, well, I'll still get to it because I want to hear what you guys have to say. Please do jump in. So, best practices on the job training, OTGA means for on the job training, is a double-edged sword. One, I have to say, Jennifer, we're hiring somebody new today, and you are our best pantry person, and I would love for you to train them. That means that I am now paying two people to do one job. That's expensive. The other thing is Jennifer's so good at what she does, and she's so fast. She's not going to be as fast when she's training somebody how to do her job, right? And so now we're paying two people, and they're doing it slightly slower. But it can also be a double-edged sword. And I probably need to pay Jennifer a little bit more or do something for her to make sure that I appreciate her working harder, right? That she's contributing to the greater good. I need to make sure that this person doesn't take away her hours or threaten her in any way that is unspoken, right? So it's a double-edged sword. We want to have on-the-job training. We get what we want, but we have to do the investment of training people, right? That gets back to exactly what Chef Adam was saying. We have this kind of double-edged sword. But it can also, I believe that it's really important in the hospitality industry, the thing that, if I could have the world at, according to me, one thing that would be really helpful is we have people with industry experience. So they know not to put their hands on their hips standing in the kitchen and taking up 3 times more space than they need to, or anything along those lines. Um, we want to have, it takes up time, but also it means that we get what we want. And so we bring it in. The thing that matters the most over and over again is that we have systems, that we're not doing ad hoc. So we don't have Jennifer doing the salad station this way and Deegan doing the salad station that way. Everybody might make great salads, but what we're doing is we're here to serve something consistently. Think about it. McDonald's across the country. One of the reasons why it's so great is because we know what we can expect, and that's really important. So we run with that across the board. We want to have systems over and over again. One of the reasons why we want to have systems is we want to make sure that we don't have three half cases of avocados because they're so expensive and they go so fast. We want to make sure that we really have the things that work and that we're moving along. So we take inventory, and it's not like, yeah, just of course we're running out of avocados. There's only a quarter of a case left, and I didn't actually open it up. That we always put the avocados in the same storage space, and I walk through with a clipboard and take inventory, or that I pay my bills on time so that we don't like needlessly waste money on late fees or how we train people or what the job description is or that we have time. Systems. And it's really tricky. I mean, I see it just in my own business, certainly with my clients in my own business and also just in my own life. I was, remember that phase when we were all in COVID and we were going through decluttering? I was like, okay, open my closet. And I was like, there's nothing extra in there. I need absolutely everything. By the time I emptied it, there was that dress from 1972. Like, dear Lord, that just doesn't fit anymore. How is, why do I need to keep that? So when we actually open things up and look at it, we realize that we don't remember everything. We remember things emotionally, anecdotally, with warm memories and not measuring on fact. So systems help make that replicable over and over. And we spend a lot less time wringing our hands saying, it's just not like it used to be, doesn't, stuff like that over and over. And having that, we can measure and solve for right off the bat. We can make a bunch of tiny tweaks. I don't fly an airplane. I don't know how to fly an airplane, but I often think of a cockpit, right? Because you see, pilots and they're constantly adjusting little things of these 73 different knobs that they have. I do know how to run a restaurant and a food business, and that is certainly how most effectively do it. We don't want to steer, all over the place. We want to constantly be adjusting. And these are the tools that are going to give you the opportunity to get there. So, if there are no systems, I guarantee that you're missing something every time. If you're not doing your food cost and you're like, yeah, I did it once before I opened 3 years ago or 7 years ago, or I'm not sure how to do it, or I'm selling pad thai at the same price that somebody else is selling pad thai because that's the price of pad thai. We don't know who they have for labor. They might have their mom working in the back and they're not paying their mom because everybody's living together, or they might you know, something you don't know where they're buying their ingredients and you don't know their costs. So you can't just go of like everybody sells pad thai for $10.95. Want to be really careful about that, right? So if you don't have a system, I guarantee that you are missing something and you want to be very careful about not missing something because it will come up, excuse me, on your bottom line. And that's where you get hurt. Remember, we're working off of a profit margin that's somewhere between 7 and 15% is what is projected. That's not a lot of room to mess around. So we want to make sure we have it. A lot of people say it's a really tough industry with razor thin margins. That may be true, but it doesn't mean that we can't be profitable. Cross training, cross, over the top. Like remember that in my master spreadsheet, you can come up with it any way you want, but above all, I want you to like think of your business in a continuum rather than a bunch of one-off things because the price that I pay for peanut butter or avocados changes everything. So you want to cross train. The reason why you want to cross train is that you have a division of labor and specialization of labor, right? If I can do both the pizza station and the salad station, that's going to change across the board. It's going to change so much. Having that division of labor really changes so that we can pivot all the time. Like there's Jennifer training the new person, but so and so is having a tough time over at the pizza station. She can turn around and say, okay, new person, we've done this salad 6 times. You go ahead. It's your time to practice it. I'm going to be right here. I'm going to step over here for half a second and we can go back and forth. So that will change a whole bunch right off the bat. Having people that way, also, we reduce down the number of people that we have because we can do 1.5 jobs or we can flex back and forth. And it means that everybody, the specialization of labor includes and goes up to people feeling really good about being part of the team that succeeds. Remember, everybody wants to be part of a winning team. This gives people the opportunity to shine. So we let them be great by making sure that they have specialized labor and that they know that they can, work it down and flex. Also, in doing that, we feel like a team. It doesn't have to be because in the hospitality industry, in the restaurant industry, it's so easy to be like, I got it, I'm tough. Like it's such a cultural norm that we don't ask for help. But if we built this into part of our culture to where we flex and we can help each other out and support for the greater good, it's not that Deegan did a bad job and needed somebody's help. It's that we got to work together as a team for a minute, and that's going to make me feel really good about myself and you. And it makes us a stronger team. People that are connected, right? We work better. It's just like human beings are better when they're connected. So cross prep, we want to do the same thing. If somebody's doing sliced tomatoes and somebody else needs diced tomatoes, do it all at once, right? Then I get to get really good at what I'm doing. And we don't have one person starting and stopping over and over again. That really changes a lot. So the style of food and commonalities are part of the building of your menu. We want to be careful to do that. We don't want to have the same thing over and over, but we want to have the style of food and commonalities all built into the menu. That way you can reduce down on your labor costs. When we reduce down on the labor cost because somebody specializes in something, it means that I have more labor dollars to spend, which means I get to pay you more when I pay you more and recognize it in a culture of excellence. You want to do better. We want to cross sell. When we cross sell, it makes everything better. So remember when I was talking about we have this 40-seat peanut butter and jelly sandwich cafe, but guess what? When I start selling to meetings down at City Hall or to teacher conferences, or I cut them as finger food and we can sell them to kindergartners. I don't know, I'm just making up ideas here, right? Because we don't really ever sell peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? But when we can cross sell, it makes everything better because we're building more and we're filling in the gaps in our production area to increase. I see your hand, I'll be right there, that we can increase our output and how things are going. So cross-selling makes everything better. It just raises the bar. Jennifer, what'd you have?
Well, I was just going to let you know we got about 10 minutes left.
Thanks so much. What we need to do is go out and get people we need to build the brand. And so that people know that we're there so that we increase sales to at least to where it's like 50 on every Tuesday. And sometimes it goes from 50 to 70, but it doesn't go from 20 to 70. That would be about brand building. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you afterwards about it if you want, because I would need to learn some more. So cross-training, cross-selling makes everything better. You can sell appetizers as entrees, right? And you have your mission-aligned staff. You cross-check as well. You have your vendors and purchasing that come down from your order guides. Doing that across the board and knowing where sometimes I buy onions here and sometimes I buy onions there. I have a tendency to have two different vendors at any given time that I can look for. I don't have 14 vendors because it takes away from the time. When you cross as well, you have your master prep list, which can be broken down to by station, right? It's the master prep sheet that I was talking about. And then you can divide by skill set. So-and-so is really good with, doing tomatoes on the slicer. We're going to have her prep not only for the entree station, but also for the salad station. It creates an inherent desire for upward mobility and pride. People want to be part of the winning team. And it creates a consistent product with less weights because if somebody's always doing the tomatoes, somebody's going to be like, you know what? I have a bucket of tomato wings at the end of every prep day. What can we do about that? They're going to look at it. And that goes back to hiring the people that you want to have. You want to hire the people and not the actual skill set because somebody that cares is going to notice that. So leveraging number 2 is leveraging sales. You can increase your ticket average by how are other menus written. You want to look at that to learn from it and then decide what options are available. I personally don't believe in packages and combos because um, people can get somewhat entitled about it. So I shouldn't say I don't believe in it. We want to be really careful. As soon as it's like Groupon, when we start selling in packages and combos, people can start having expectations of what they are owed. So we want to be careful about how we're doing it. And also we want to, a lot of times packages and combos come out as a last ditch effort on figuring out how to get something done. Make sure you cost it out. I just want to make sure that we're not doing it right off the bat. Smaller flights. I'm a lightweight. I can't drink that much. People that can have. So I was out to dinner with a couple of friends a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'm good, thank you. And then the server said, we sell half glasses. And I was like, great. I would like a glass of wine to go with my entree because I just had one half a glass, right? So you want to have smaller flights. You can have smaller quantities or something like that so that you can sell across the board. It's not just for people that can handle it. You could have smaller desserts. So they're just tastings for like $5, $7, $8 as opposed to 12 to 15, or you can have bigger desserts. You can have dessert combos and platters. You can find ways to leverage your sales, not just that people won't. It's our job to figure out how to get to our break even and profitability. These are some of the ways you can do it. And it is not just the way it is. Used to have that in absolutely not just the way it is. It used to certainly jump in there big time in having that. If we get to the point where it's just the way it is, it means that our restaurant is going to stay half empty. So we need to figure out how we're going to leverage it. Strategic catering, I've talked about this a bunch, so I'm going to jump through it, but basically we want to make sure that we're bringing in things where we can fill in the gaps, right? Make sure that we're selling stuff. If I'm making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the high school, we can also do it for a business meeting as well. To your target market so that they become ambassadors to your business. You want people to be talking about your business, and that way you get to control the menu so it works best for your business model. We're not going to sell lobster Alfredo for a catering thing because it's going to get cold and Alfredo doesn't work great for catering and lobster is really expensive and we want to make sure it's delicious, right? We want to sell something that's middle of the road that works. We can do delivery and curbside pickup, not just having third parties do it, right? If we can create a relationship with people coming in, we say, hey, next time you want to do that, just give us a call and we'll have it out at the curbside for you. The third party delivery system, it's so easy to complain about how they cost so much. We need to build that in. And you can actually build it in and find ways to make it work for you. You can also negotiate with third party delivery systems. We could do pop-ups, we could have people come in as pop-ups, or we could do a series. Leveraging sales. We've talked about this several times, so I'm going to skip through it. To-go items, catering groups, buyouts. Simply remind people that you exist. Maybe this is like this slide for the erratic sales when people go from 20 to 70. Get to-go items, catering, remind people that you're there. Stuff like that, rather than just like, woo, what's happening? And also knowing your break even is going to help change that a whole bunch. Smart leasing, if you're just starting up a business, I would definitely recommend working with a local SBDC advisor to make sure that you read the terms of the smart leasing carefully, that you get help with reading the contracts, that you understand the real cost. Is it a triple net? What does that really look like? Because that is going to get down to how much money you need to make in order to make things work. Understanding the limitations. Can I bring somebody in on my days off? What kind of food can I sell in this shopping center or not? Then you want to negotiate. Do not just take the lease as top of mind. What has to happen? And does this space work for your financial and business model? So often we don't look at that. We're just like, we're going to make it work. That is shoving a square peg into a round hole. And none of us walk comfortably in shoes that are too small for us. We have to find something that works. That being said, a kitchen is never going to be big enough, right? We all want bigger kitchens and smaller dining rooms, but we need to have a place to have seats so that people can come in. And in summary, check your business model and adjust if need be. Please don't assume that it will work and then just keep working really, really hard. You want to hire carefully and train meticulously. Make sure that you're creating people that are bringing you into a culture of excellence so that they get to be part of something that is bigger than themselves and they get to be part of the winning team. And it is our job as leaders to make sure that we set sail with the destination, give them the tools that they need to succeed and turn around and thank them as they do. You want to purchase carefully and build relationship with your vendors, right? If you open the boxes that come in the doors, I guarantee you're going to get better quality product every single time. Purchase carefully in relation to your menu and your order guide and seasonality. You want to cross train, cross sell, and cross prep. You want to have those three crosses going all over the time, so that you can reduce costs and increase the product that you're selling, bringing a higher, USP, unique selling proposition. You're bringing more value to the table. When you do that, it's going to be your restaurant that has a line with people out the door before it opens. You can increase sales strategically to make it easier on yourself and to fill in your financial and your labor gaps and your real estate gaps rather than just taking on more people. Because if you have 40 seats, you can only see 40 people at a time, but we can sell them a hot cross bun or dessert to go or something like that. If you don't have room for dessert now, you want to take something to go, you might have room later this evening when you're going to want something sweet. Increase your sales strategically, measure reality against projections, measure what's happening today against what you wanted to have happen. And you want to always be careful about smart leasing going into it, which is kind of an anomaly, right? Because if you're already in business, that is what is happening. So that is the summary of where we are. The next steps is take this entire framework and let it work for you, make it work for you. Take what works and leave the rest. But I encourage you to take it and look at it for what it is rather than just doing what we always know, which is hard to do. And look at in that framework, what will have the highest impact in your business? Take care of that now. What can you measure? Because what gets measured is what gets done. And then how will you measure your success? What comes from there? What we talked about today is creating data-driven decisions and assessments, identifying the larger scale trends, which we talked about throughout, how to connect the dots to your business and leverage those dots for your mission and vision. Make sure that you're constantly adjusting like a airplane pilot and directly grow your successful business from there. Thank you so much. We arrived 1 minute under the thing, even though we're managing time. How can I help you moving forward? And I want to share with you the number one thing that is this most important part of why small food and beverage businesses fail is because they are undercapitalized or under leveraged, meaning you don't have enough money to go all the way around. So we want to make sure that's why we look at all of that financial stuff going into it, that we have a budget and then we measure it against reality. Because if you don't have enough money, you will start to stumble and choke. That's what I have. I'm willing to stay on a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, thank you so much.